So, translation, I guess, is you should always try and offer and compromise. And I'm going to deliver here what I think everybody always wants, and that is how to settle for less than the IRS is saying that you owe. All right. So let me start with kind of a broad overview of the offer and compromise process, and kind of start way back at the beginning here with the big elephant in the room, I think, which is this thing that the IRS and the federal government calls the tax gap. The tax gap. And let me kind of show you. I'll just go straight to the IRS's website and kind of walk you through what they have to say about the tax gap. The IRS .gov statistics page has something called IRS the tax gap on it, and it defines the tax gap as the gross tax gap is the difference between true tax liability for a given tax year and the amount that is paid on time. It is comprised of the non-filing gap, the under-reporting gap, and the underpayment or remittance gap. The next tax gap is the portion of the gross tax gap that will never be recovered through enforcement or other late payments. And really that's kind of the important tax gap that we're focusing on here right now. I think in layman's talk, what they're saying here is the tax gap is the difference between what people either file on their tax return or should file on their tax return as taxes due and owing versus what actually gets collected, either voluntarily or through these enforcement things, as they call it, or other late payments. They say the reports listed below vary as to whether they focus narrowly on one or two types of tax versus all taxes. They're organized into sections dealing with tax years 2008 through 10, tax year 06, tax year 01, and earlier. So, translation, we're only getting here just kind of a word of caution right from the get-go here, straight from the IRS website. The most recent stats they keep on this is 2010 tax year. Okay. So not real up to the minute, and that's probably because of how big this number that I'm getting ready to show you is. I have to imagine that it's bigger than this at this point, but nonetheless, we'll go with the most recent tax year that they keep stuff on. That is Federal Tax Compliance Research for tax estimates for years 2008 through 2010. We'll go to that and skip through all the fun government stuff here, and I want to show you something, one thing real important here. Here it is. The overall gross and net tax gap. As shown in Table 1, which is this extremely complicated looking government chart, the estimated gross tax gap is, drumroll please, $458 billion with a B. That's the difference again between what should be showing up on tax returns out there versus what they've actually collected on those tax returns. $458 billion. They go on to say an estimated $52 billion of the gross tax gap eventually will be collected, resulting in a net tax gap of $406 billion. Okay, not as bad as 458, but still pretty daggum significant, if you ask me. $458 billion or $407 billion is that big tax gap that the IRS exists to try to collect. All right.